When you really think about it, a modern rock festival is kind of a miracle.
It really is.
I mean, these temporary cities pop up in a remote field, they host hundreds of thousands of people, and then they just
Right.
vanish.
They have to bring in their own power, all their food, manage these massive crowds. It's an incredible feat.
So today, let's trace that evolution. How did we get from, a few people in a field to these giant, high-tech global events?
Well, what's fascinating is that the idea of a big outdoor music festival, it actually started way before rock and roll even existed.
Oh, really? So what kind of music was it?
Mostly jazz or folk music
Right.
back in the mid-20th century. The concept was already there.
So people just liked being outside for music.
Exactly. It was about freedom. You had space to move around, to dance, to socialize. You weren't stuck in a stuffy concert hall.
And is there like a ground zero for this, a first of its kind event?
You'd have to point to the Newport Jazz Festival in the U.S. It's really seen as the pioneer for that large outdoor format.
What did it prove?
It proved that thousands of people would actually travel really long distances, sometimes across multiple states, just to hear live music for a few days. That was a game changer.
Okay, so the model's there, but then rock music just explodes onto the scene.
Everything changes. Once teenagers got a hold of rock, the demand just went through the roof. It was a massive cultural shift.
It wasn't just about listening to the record at home anymore.
No, not at all. Young people wanted a live, collective experience, a place to go and express themselves, away from the rules of their parents' generation.
Yeah.
That's what really fueled the festival boom of the late 60s.
All right, so let's jump right into that boom. Let's look at three festivals that basically define that whole era. First stop, California, June 1967, Monterey Pop.
Monterey was revolutionary. It was the first major rock festival in the United States, and the organizers had a very specific, a very deliberate goal.
Which was what?
They wanted to treat rock music as a serious art form, to give it the same respect that classical music or jazz got.
And it worked. About 30,000 people showed up, right? Basically kicking off the Summer of Love.
And it made superstars overnight. I mean, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, they were not household names before Monterey. They delivered these legendary performances, and suddenly they were famous around the world.
And there's this real idealistic spirit to it. A lot of the artists played for free, didn't they, for charity?
They did. Plus, the whole thing was professionally filmed, and that film was so important
Why was that?
because it spread the culture. It showed millions of people who couldn't be there what it was actually like. And they used, for the time, a really advanced sound system. It proved a big rock event could be done well.
And that success was then just magnified to an insane degree 2 years later. Woodstock,
No.
August 1969.
Woodstock, the most famous one, held on a muddy dairy farm in New York, supposed to be about peace and music. But the story quickly became about survival.
The scale was just, it was almost a disaster. They expected, what, maybe 150,000 people?
Something like that. And over 400,000 showed up, more than double. It created huge, immediate problems with food, water, sanitation, everything.
And no cell phones to find anyone.
A total logistical nightmare. But here's the amazing thing. Despite all of that, the rain, the mud, the shortages, the atmosphere stayed incredibly peaceful.
The community spirit just took over.
It really did. The fences were torn down, it became a free event, and that cemented it as a symbol for a whole generation's ideals.
And of course, the music. Jimi Hendrix playing the national anthem. That image is just iconic. It captured everything about that moment.
And at the same time, this was happening across the Atlantic, too. The Isle of Wight festivals in the UK.
Which, in 1970, was actually even bigger than Woodstock.
It was. The estimates are over 600,000 people. Now, just try to imagine getting 600,000 people onto a small island.
Using mostly ferries. That sounds impossible.
It almost was. The local government was so overwhelmed, they actually passed a special law after that to limit the size of any future gatherings on the island.
That's incredible. And people who couldn't even get tickets would sit on a hill nearby, right? Desolation Row.
Yep, just to hear the music.
Yeah.
It really proved that this hunger for live rock was now a global thing.
Yeah.
But it also raised a huge new problem.
Which was?
How do you make sure 500,000 people can actually hear the music clearly? Early festival sound was famously terrible.
Right. So this is where the engineers had to step in.
This is where engineering basically saves the rock festival. They had to invent solutions from scratch. The big one was creating these walls of speakers.
Just massive stacks of them.
Huge stacks. designed specifically to project sound hundreds of feet across an open field without it turning into a muddy mess.
And it wasn't just about being loud. You needed clarity. You need to hear the bass, the vocals, everything.
Absolutely. So they also had to invent these incredibly complex mixing boards to balance all the instruments for an outdoor setting. And to power all that,
Generators.
massive generators pumping out thousands and thousands of watts of electricity,
Mhm.
enough to power a small town right there in a field.
Even the microphones had to be redesigned, I'd imagine, to cut down on wind and crowd noise.
Exactly. Without all those technical breakthroughs, the modern festival experience just wouldn't be possible. This is what allowed rock to become the loudest form of entertainment in the world.
So that technology opens the door for the mega festival era of the 70s and 80s, and the whole idea behind them starts to shift.
It really does. They go from being these counterculture gatherings, events run by people outside the mainstream, to becoming huge commercial businesses,
The corporations saw the profit potential.
big time. And that changed everything. The events became way more professional. Suddenly you have organized security, designated camping areas, multiple stages.
You see that with events like the Reading Festival in England, right? It became this huge annual thing for hard rock and heavy metal.
Yeah, and in the U.S., you had the U.S. Festival, which used the latest satellite technology to broadcast the shows around the world.
But all that professionalism, all that tech, it came at a price.
A literal price. Tickets got way more expensive, production values went up,
Yeah.
Huge light shows, pyrotechnics, and rock became a multi-million-dollar global business.
So did that alienate the original audience, the ones who started it all with that free, idealistic spirit?
That's a great question. For some, yeah, it did. The corporate feel was a turnoff. But they kept attracting new generations of fans by selling an incredible experience. You got the biggest bands, the best sound, the most amazing spectacle. It was a trade-off. Idealism for professionalism.
Which brings us to a festival that somehow managed to keep its soul even as it got huge. Glastonbury.
Ah, Glastonbury is one of a kind. It started in 1970 at Worthy Farm, and it became famous for its diversity. It's not just a rock festival.
No, it's theater, it's dance music, it's circus acts. It's famous for that pyramid stage and, of course,
The mud, the legendary unavoidable mud.
but its mission is really what makes it different.
Absolutely. It has always kept this strong focus on social causes, donating millions to charities. It becomes a city for a week, and then it goes back to being a working farm. A lot of European festivals, like Roskilde in Denmark, really followed that model of mixing music, art, and activism.
Then the 90s arrive, and stadium rock is suddenly not cool anymore. You have the grunge and alternative era, which was intentionally gritty. It needed a new kind of festival.
And that gave us Lollapalooza, a completely different strategy. Instead of putting all its bets on one giant weekend in one place.
It became a touring festival.
Exactly. It traveled all across North America,
Hmm.
which was brilliant for the fans.
Yeah, you didn't have to travel 1,000 miles. The festival came to you.
And you could see bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam. The music was darker, more emotional. It reflected the mood of the time.
And it championed what they call the DIY aesthetic. What does that mean exactly?
DIY, do-it-yourself. It means making things look intentionally raw, a little messy, handmade, rejecting that glossy corporate look. Lollapalooza featured smaller indie bands right next to the huge headliners. It proved festivals could keep adapting.
Which brings us to today. The scale is bigger than ever, and that brings some really serious challenges. Let's start with safety.
Yeah, early festivals were, let's be honest, they were dangerous. There was little to no medical care or real security.
Now it's a science.
It has to be. You have professional medical tents. You have mandatory free drinking water stations. There are strict building codes for the stages to prevent collapses.
And managing the crowds themselves to prevent people from getting crushed.
Highly specialized. They use these steel crowd control barriers to create safe zones. And they work directly with police and fire departments to create detailed emergency evacuation plans. It's a massive coordinated effort.
Okay, so that's safety. The other huge challenge is the environmental impact.
This is probably the biggest issue for the future. These events boost local economies for sure, but they leave a huge carbon footprint. All the travel, all the waste.
So many festivals now are trying to become carbon neutral. What does that mean for anyone who's not sure?
Carbon neutral just means you balance out the carbon dioxide the event produces from things like cars and generators by doing things that remove that same amount of carbon, like planting trees or using clean energy.
And we're seeing that in practice now.
We are. They're using solar panels to power stages. They're encouraging carpooling, banning single-use plastics. Some scientists are even monitoring the soil to make sure the farmland isn't permanently damaged.
And the technology that the average fan experiences today is just, it's worlds away from Woodstock.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
You have a mobile app for the schedule, digital tickets on your phone for fast entry. If you're stuck in the back, you're watching the show on a giant HD screen.
Right. And millions more are watching a live stream from home.
And you don't even need cash anymore. You pay for everything with a wristband that has an electronic chip in it.
While on stage, powerful computers are syncing up every single light and visual with the music, second by second.
So what's next? The future is probably more integration with things like virtual reality. Maybe you attend from your living room with a headset on.
But sustainability is going to be the biggest driver of change, isn't it?
It has to be.
Yeah.
But the music will keep changing, the technology will keep evolving, but that core desire, that need to gather with thousands of other people and feel live music together, I don't think that's ever going away.
It's an amazing story. From a simple jazz gathering to these complex, high-tech, temporary cities that are a huge part of our culture.
They're incredibly resilient. They just keep adapting to new technology and new social concerns.
So next time you see a giant festival on TV, just remember everything that went into it. Decades of chaos, innovation, and just the pure love of music.
Good luck with your studies.